This episode is dedicated to Dustin Matalone, Silverstrand Beach, Oxnard, California. Rest in peace.
"185 Miles South," a hardcore punk rock podcast.
What's up, everyone? This week on the pod, we are talking hardcore. Actually, we're talking 90s punk, which is something I'm pretty excited about. I've wanted to do this for a while. We got a lineup of heavy hitters to break into this. Helping out, you know him, you love him. He is the best dressed man on the pod. He is Dan Sant. What's up, Dan?
What's going on?
Oh, he had to. He had to jack Ben's. Also helping out, it is Ben Merlis, a.k.a. Ben Edge, a.k.a. Bedge. What's up, Ben?
Got to keep them separated.
There you go. We're going to get there. Also helping out, it is Anthony Pappalardo. What's up, Pops?
Chilling, man. Thank you again for having me on.
Of course. Yeah, so, this is something that we haven't talked about, and, we're over 150 episodes, and it is just like a crazy cultural phenomenon. The fact that, punk breaks into the mainstream in 1994 with Green Day and Offspring and a plethora of others. And I wanted to dive into it because, recently I went back and I listened to those two albums, right? Dookie and Smash. And I was like, what is it about these two albums that, connected and blew up? Because they're strange in their both ways. And we'll dive into them later in the show. But I want to talk about, that year 94 and what happens. The Green Day album comes out in February of 1994, and then the Offspring album comes out in April of 94. But I think that Green Day's success, it takes off in the summer with when they do the single Basket Case, which is the second or the third single off the record. And Ben, is that correct?
Yeah, but I think Longview and Welcome to Paradise become hits maybe retroactively. I had trouble figuring out when those songs started to become hits.
Yeah, Longview was the first single, and I remember it coming out, but it didn't and it was okay, Green Day's in the mainstream purview now, but the Basket Case song breaks it wide open. And then I wanted to go to you first, Ben, because there is some discussion. In fact, there was even a documentary that came out, right? The year punk broke, there was all the alternative type bands. And people
Sonic Youth, basically a Sonic Youth documentary with Nirvana supporting them.
Right. And so then some people say, is Nirvana breaking in 91? Is that punk? Is that a precursor? Is it adjacent? What? And Ben, I wanted to shoot it to you, your opinion on that.
Well, that documentary, if you watch it, it's Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth who says 1991 is going to be the year punk broke, and he's being completely sarcastic, and he's saying it in a sarcastic voice, and I interpret it as sarcasm, and I'm in agreement that it's a joke to think that 1991 is the year punk broke, because I was a punk rock 13-year-old in 1991, and it was very strange for a kid to be a punk rocker. Flash forward 3 years, it's the thing. And I think what happened with Nirvana and grunge is kind of like a mashup of hard rock and punk. A lot of the people who were doing it had punk pedigree, and they were leaning into hard rock. I mean, we know that that's a thing that a lot of punk bands did. Black Flag did it, Circle Jerks did it, DYS, SSD, all these other bands. But it worked when the Seattle bands did it. I mean, commercially it worked. And so it kind of, when Nirvana gets big in 91, it acclimates the public for harder, more aggressive music coming out of hair metal. And so it's kind of a more difficult mental leap to go from Poison to Offspring without having Nirvana in between as that middle step, that stepping stone for your average, radio MTV listening norm to understand this kind of music or accept it. And then the other thing that Nirvana did was they got so big so fast that all these A&R people from different major record labels were looking for the next Nirvana. Like any one of these people you talk to, they're like, everyone was looking for, quote, the next Nirvana, unquote, which means kind of like any left of center band, alt rock band, punk band. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. Just kind of like not hair metal. And, so there was this tidal wave of major record label signings from 91 to probably 96 or so, where all these bands got through. Most of them didn't succeed. And so getting through the door are bands like Green Day, who are traditionally punk sounding bands that we think of as punk bands. I mean, not ethically punk. You could argue all day about that, but like, okay, punk bands got signed to majors, but it really had to do with, these people trying to find the next Nirvana. So there's two things. It's like, this is how these bands were able to get signed. And then this is also how the public was able to accept them.
Right. And then diving into like Nirvana though, like what that does is when we're talking about like the musical transition away from like a band like Poison, you are showing like that there's a stripped down band that can write, 3-minute or sub 3-minute songs, have no guitar solos, and be like the most popular band in the world. Right. So it is like a little bit of like the lubing of the engine for like punk to be ready. And while they don't find the next Nirvana, they find this other thing that is like, I guess sonically not completely the same, but in that aspect, like you're writing simple 3-minute songs with no guitar solos. It's more in like the vocal hooks and so forth. Like it's there. It's like very similar in that way.
And in fact, in listening to the Green Day and Offspring records, there are hits by both these bands that are very similar to Nirvana, which I never thought of before, but we'll get to them when we get to that segment. But it's even more, there's even more of a connection than I even had thought before. And I don't know if this is pure coincidence, but Kurt Cobain killed himself in April of 94. And that's exactly when that Offspring album comes out. And like we said, Green Day came out in February, but people weren't rocking it until later, maybe the spring going into the summer. So I have no idea if that's like sheer coincidence that, Nirvana ending at that moment led to the rise of these bands, or if it was going to happen anyway.
I think that like maybe Kurt Cobain was like an Offspring super fan, and he's like, "Fuck!" They made a ska song, and then he's killed himself.
I shouldn't be laughing.
I don't know. Dan, what's your take?
Well, I think what Ben's saying has a vast amount of validity into the building blocks of this, but I feel like it is one finger out of four that make this hand that pushes up punk to break. So Nirvana and the A&R like scramble, that's huge. But also Jane's Addiction and alt radio also having an A&R scramble. So Jane's Addiction come essentially out of what some people might say is a punk scene, even though it us purists know it's not, but they're regarded as such quite a bit, And then Lollapalooza allows these massive zeitgeist moments of all of this alternative underground to be spoken about in regular MTV news, MTV airplay, and then therefore get out onto these more alternative radio stations. So all of these acts that have been bubbling like underground that are hard music, are starting to be discussed by Joe Schmo in the street because of these zeitgeist moments. So that's another thing that's bubbling under this. That's like another building block into this. And then those magazines that were absolutely important, like Print was gigantic, in the late 80s, early 90s. So when Spin, Alternative Press, even Tower Records was carrying like actual punk zines in their magazine section, so all of these things are just all writing about things. And, like in the early 90s before Green Day and Offspring and the rise of Epitaph like exploding like that, alternative press or Spin were doing articles on Fugazi or articles on Bad Religion and things like that. So they were like bubbling under the surface before like a massive platinum selling LP. So I think there's a lot of that goes to be in the building blocks of where it then explodes.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on the Jane's Addiction thing, and I hate to go here because I think it's the worst band ever, but do you think the Chili Peppers have something to do with this too? Like, is there another band where you're getting away from like the butt rock, and a lot of bands in like the late 80s, they go into kind of like that funk type stuff, and they're kind of in that alternative world where this is all percolating, and it like allows, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because those weren't masculine bands, right? Like, so like Jane's Addiction specifically, like, kind of introduced gender fluid again, like not in the same way that like Bowie did it or whatever, but they kind of said we can rock, but we're not like masculine. You know what I mean? Like, I think the Chili Peppers do the same thing in this, which is, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like, I'm a rock star, but I'm not like a badass guy smoking cigarettes doing it this way, right? It's like it's a little vulnerable. And I think that vulnerability sets up this other thing. And kind of in a strange way, that's what allows this to happen. Because if you think about all these bands, right? Like, I mean, Low Self-Esteem, right? That song is about being vulnerable. You can joke about it, whatever. But these bands that come in that usher in this new kind of sensibility, they're vulnerable bands. And I think, like to say it, it's like the Chili Peppers, the Chai Peps do that. Like, Under the Bridge is a very vulnerable song. And it's kind of like, it kind of sets up this new thing, which, Nirvana, I think Nirvana, of all those bands, right? Like, of the grunge bands, they're the most vulnerable band. And I think that's what, for whatever reason, I don't really like, I didn't dig into it too much, but I think people wanted that vulnerability, kind of in like an REM way or something, but it just worked. And I think whatever the cultural sensibility was, people were ready for that. And like, we were kind of done with like the machismo.
Yeah. And I think that maybe Nirvana like becomes the biggest one because they also kick ass, right? So it's like people want a vulnerability, but they also like want music that rocks. And so that's kind of what you get here when punk breaks in 94. You have that vulnerability like you're talking about, but then these bands also like rock, it's not all, I don't know.
Well,
like Pearl
also,
Jam is So Sorry. Well,
Nirvana sounds like a band that you could do yourself. I mean, yes. I think it's that simple. Like, everyone's first band kind of sounds like Nirvana. It's kind of like very simple. It's like, oh, we're just kids like playing music, and like, it's kind of the best version of kids playing music. It's like it's very much like there's no pretense. It's like, oh, this is just a thing we have. Now, I'm not taking anything away from them. They are masterful songwriters, but there's something very tangible about what they're doing, which makes punk. That's why punk. That's why it translates to people, right? Because it's very tangible, and I think in a strange way, like, you're not going to write a song as good as Kurt Cobain, but he makes you feel like you could, and that's why it feels like very salient.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, talking about the vulnerability. I think what also comes along with like Jane's, Nirvana, Chili Peppers, etc., is they are handling themselves in a much different way when they are interacting with the press, and more often like the actual fans that get to see them, is the fact that they've all had some aspect of punk in their life, and they have less of a veneer of bullshit that all the the hair metal and all of the, you know, the Rolling Stones and whatever everyone else has been raised on, to a newer generation that's experiencing this stuff, they're seeing like almost like a accessibility that comes with like a lack of bullshit with punk. And I think, you know, that's another firm building block to where it goes.
That's a really great point, Daniel. That's a really great point, because those bands made it seem like that was accessible to you, rather than it being like the walls up, like you can't get in here. Like those bands made it seem like, yeah, you could do this too.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about though is like why these two bands are the ones that break through, and how is it that they get to be put on like the same level as like the biggest bands in the world, right? Because before there was like, you're looking up to rock stars and saying like, this is unattainable. Like you can't do it. Like you can't play like Eddie Van Halen. So you're not like going to be playing arenas, because the masters of their craft get to play like the arenas, right? So like Nirvana, they get big. They're one of the biggest bands in the world. And then like, what is it that like for the general populace, like gives it the pass that like you don't have to be a ripper anymore to like be a giant rock star?
I don't think it's that, you know, like, I'm actually like really stoked to talk about this, because like being the only person from the East Coast, there's always an American obsession with California, right? Like it's just like, maybe as all Californians, you don't understand this, but like the rest of the world is like, where's the end of the United States, right? And it's like surfing, skateboarding, good weather. This is like such a thing, right? And now there hasn't been a California movement, right? There hasn't been a thing where America looks out to this thing, right? And there's also, here's why I think this happened. So there's a new wave of surf videos. I believe the series was called Momentum, which was like a really big thing, right? But then also
pops to jump in as Taylor Steele, Momentum, and he has like that.
Yeah, Momentum, right? Yep. For sure. So then there's like also these skate videos, and then like skateboarding videos become this thing. And what happened was, my friend Jacob Rosenberg, who did all the Plan B videos, he developed a relationship with Epitaph. Like he was just like calling up Mr. Brett, we want to use like a Bad Religion song. And then he said, well, what about the Offspring? I don't know. Cool. So they use the Offspring in these things. So these are earworms that like all these kids were hearing. And I think there was already like people all over the world, right? Like not just the United States, who are already like, we know who the Offspring are. We know who Green Day is. We know who NoFX is. And Green Day was included in the Plan B video because of Rick Howard. Rick Howard was a big fan of Green Day. But these things were already happening. And so that same year, right, you have the Warped Tour starts in 1994.
95.
X Games is about to happen.
95.
What's that?
Both of those started in 95.
Okay, well, sure. Anyways, but these things are happening where it's like the cultural moments are moving towards this idea of fun music, where like there wasn't a Warped Tour for hair metal. Do you understand? So I think what was happening is like there was just this idea that like there's this fun thing, and it's like grunge wasn't fun. That's why like it's cool, like people liked it, but it wasn't a fun thing where the average person is like, I can get on this. And I think that relief that, you know, maybe Green Day gave people was really important in just like psychologically, where it's like, I'm not thinking about Jeremy. I'm just thinking about fucking whatever. I sit around in my bedroom. Cool.
Right. Yeah. That's really important, because while the music wasn't fun, the people that are going to like the concerts like Lollapalooza and shit, they're having fun, right? Like they're crowd surfing, they're slamming, they're doing whatever. Dan, you wanted to talk about a tie-in of one reason why you think that Green Day broke, which is because they actually got put on Lollapalooza, right?
Well, no, I think it was bubbling up that they were popular, getting popular. Like the record sales and stuff were letting them get to a point where they can warrant that spot, and then they got put from a side stage to open the main stage, which is just essentially crowning them, because now they're playing in front of what? How many people do you think went to like 40,000 a show or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, just massive shows, right? So that was essentially what I think is the co-signing of like, yeah, this band does have the buzz video on MTV, but now you get to see them completely destroy in person. And let's be honest, the main reason Green Day blows up more than any of the others is because it's catchy as hell and poppy and really easily digestible.
Yeah, I mean, like Green Day is a pastiche of pop music, like something like there's this documentary, maybe we can link it. It's about 1994, and it never came out officially in theaters. It's a really good documentary, and Billy Joe talks about how much he loves 7 Seconds, which is so funny, right? Like, but he's like, I also love the Beatles. So I mean, they're a pastiche of pop music, and I think kind of in an interesting way, like they're from San Francisco, right? Like, so that's a kind of coastal elite. And then you have the Offspring, which is kind of like maybe not red state, but like they're a little more like that guy. They're that guy. You know what I mean? So at the same time, you have like these polarizing things of like people who are just like writing songs and from like, you know, San Francisco, a little more progressive. And then you also have like red state rock, which I think Offspring are red state rock. And it's kind of like, it's a coincidence thing, but it works, right? Like it speaks to two types of minds. And I think Green Day, it's like, they're just, you could put that band in any time frame. They write great songs. They just write great songs, and those are going to work.
So, Pops, why do they break though off this and not like the previous album?
Well, because it's on a major label. Like it's on radio, you know, like it's getting put into the machine, right? Like as well as like Kerplunk's awesome, right? But if it's not getting put into K-Rock, because K-Rock is the kind of the catalyst for all of this. If it's not getting put into major radio circulation, where then like other radio stations play what, like back then, right? Like I think we need to use a caveat. What K-Rock's programming is what Ohio says, oh, that's what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? So if that blueprint is there and it's like, oh, they broke in a major radio place, then the rest of the United States mimics that. And I think that's what happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but let's say like if Kerplunk went through like the major label machine, and like could Kerplunk and the previous Offspring album Ignition, like could they have been it, or is there something special about those two records that broke, like Dookie and Smash, that like make them special? Is it just that they go through the machine, or is it there's something special about these albums?
They're more produced.
I'm trying to figure out why like these two albums are the ones that broke it wide open. Like it's just wild to me.
Yeah, they're way more slick than produced. Yeah, the previous albums don't have that radio friendly sheen on them that these ones do. So I don't think it would happen.
For some reason, Americans, the only band they like that sounds like shit is the White Stripes. I don't know why. For some fucking odd reason. For real, for some odd reason, that's okay. The rest of them, no, it has to sound very big. And Kerplunk doesn't have that. I agree. It's like it has to be produced.
And why?
And what's your take?
Oh, wait, sorry.
I would say it. I mean, part of the machine, like what Anthony and Ben have both just touched on is that you get the radio pluggers, right? So they're going around and they are romancing program directors to give this record major spins, and then, if the fans latch onto it and start requesting it in their like countdown at 9 or whatever, they know like they've made it. And then there are those record radio things going around at Christmas time where I saw Green Day in '94 on that Christmas time thing where they, it was with Violent Femmes and Rollins Band and whatever that went round to every alt radio station in each city. What I will say is the Offspring one is interesting because I think they're just getting better and Epitaph has more money, so there's better production and things like that. But with Green Day, it is definitely, let's take these incredible, catchy, almost 60s jangle pop punk songs that you write, and then let's get a really good producer to work with you and make it so it's just going to appeal to everyone. And it did.
Yeah, and I think that combining like the fun thing that Pops was talking about also with like the festival circuit being so like critical then makes Green Day work, right? Because if you listen to Dookie, they have like a lot of jam parts on the record, which are terrible to listen to, in my opinion, on record, but like they're made for like, it's almost like they're writing like this pop record, but then they have these parts that are made for them playing in front of 20,000 people. Like they work. It's like we can drag out these parts for as long as we want. And if you think about like,
it's their live. It's their live at Leeds parts. They're trying to be the Who. That's the impression I get, and I know they're big Who fans. But yeah, I totally hear that too.
That's a great call because you know what, like they are emulating that, and I don't know. I think it takes a certain mind to be like, oh, we want that. We want to be live at Leeds, right? And other bands just didn't have it, and they actually were like, yeah, no, like we want to be rock stars, whereas like maybe the Buzzcocks didn't. You know what I mean? And like it's kind of like that that understanding of like we have an opportunity and we're going to go all in. And like I think from everything I've learned, they were just like, yeah, we're going to do this. Maybe it's just that commitment, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a mission statement in that band. We are going to, they came out of Gilman, so essentially we are going to betray what we believed in for glory, and they went for it. With what Zach says about like the jam parts and stuff, I don't know if any of you have seen Green Day in the last 15 years. This is way after they're, when they're massive. I saw them with Blink on that co-headlining tour they did. And I swear to God, every single song breaks down into a call and response part to the crowd, like over and over again, like Dale, and just all this stuff in the middle of it. It's great for an arena, and I'm sure people get psyched on it, but I thought it was unbearable. But it is all those parts you're talking about, Zach.
Right, but and think about it though in the context of the summer of '94 and them doing Lollapalooza, like they got to just be stealing it with this, and it's wild foresight because they put it on this Dookie album. They don't know if they're going to break or not, right? And it's just not enjoyable to listen to on the record, I don't think, but I do think it would work in the live setting. And then if you think about what happens at the end of the summer of that year when they play like the Woodstock event and that's just on like pay-per-view, like I was hanging out with a bunch of my metalhead friends that like got Woodstock, whatever that was, 94 on pay-per-view to like watch Metallica. And they come away from it saying like, yeah, my two favorite performances are Metallica and Green Day. And so you have here like in the same year, like them putting out Dookie and now to a full crowd of people that like would never like this stuff being like, oh, Green Day at Lollapalooza was awesome. Because like they do that fucking one of those jam parts and are able to have this crazy like mud fight, right? Like,
yeah, that's also half of the reason though. Half the reason is that big mud fight, like, and the way the charisma of Billy Joe going over the top of that, like talking to the crowd and like talking shit to them, but being extremely charismatic, that wins people over just as much as the music, I feel.
Right, but you can't have a mud fight if it's Bad Religion. Like the song's already over. Like when they do it, in between songs or something. Like it works because it's like the drummer and the bass player are like still jamming. It's like a part of the song, a part of the set, and it's like infectious. And like this is fun, and it's like we can go to a concert and have fun. Like I think that Pop's tapped into that, and it's like totally critical, right? Because maybe with like the Nirvanas and the Pearl Jams and stuff, like you're stripping away like the pretentiousness of like 70s and 80s rock, but you have a lot of people that want to go to shows and like get buck, but like the music's not fun. And then here this is, it's like you can't accuse like Green Day and Offspring and these bands of not being fun, especially in the live setting.
Yeah, it's like they're fun the way hair metal was, but without the misogyny, and then they're kind of like simple the way bands like Nirvana were, but they're fun. So it's kind of like sort of a mashup of, it's kind of like the best of all worlds. I mean, not to me, but to a lot of people, like the best of both those worlds.
Right. And so still what I'm so curious about this time frame, right? Because I think that we've all explained like why Green Day breaking makes sense. But why does the Offspring break? Like, why are they the number?
Because they have low self-esteem, dude. Like, it's no. I'm being dead serious. Like, you're coming off like the bravado of like whatever these like think of like the Sunset Strip bands, right? They're all so like alpha of like I'm the coolest dude, whatever, and like no one can live up to that. It's like you're not fucking Bret Michaels, you're not Vince Neil, you can't. And an average person can't be that. But an average person could say, yeah, I have low self-esteem. My girlfriend cheated on me. Like, writing a song of that tempo about your girlfriend cheating on you, it's fucking genius. Like, that's very vulnerable. And I think that's, like, why a lot of people were like, yeah, I fucking get that. Like, my roommate at the time who, like, had good taste in music, was like, that was his favorite song because that was his experience. And I think it's just that simple. Like, people were like over the bravado, over this, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then also keep them separated. Like every kid who picked up an instrument, the first thing you play is like, oh, we'll show you this Snake Charmer song. Right?
Yeah.
Like everyone knows that one. And it's just so like ingrained in your head. It's almost like low-hanging fruit. But I mean, what's the barrier to entry to like the Offspring? You're alive. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing preventing you from liking the Offspring. Whereas like other bands, it's like, well, I'm not that dude. I don't wear those clothes. It's like, no, they're just some dudes.
Also,
right, but okay, Ben, go ahead.
The other thing about low self-esteem, and I didn't even realize this until today, it sounds like a Nirvana song. It's got quiet, it's slow, it's got quiet verses, and it's got loud choruses. It's totally like completely in the template of Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean,
and it also has the same bass line as like whatever that song is like. There's a Nirvana song that is almost the same bass line.
But okay, so maybe that's why those two break. Why does something like Stranger Than Fiction comes out the same year, 94? Like, why does that not push through to this level, or does it?
It doesn't.
Well, why do people not? Why do they like not like being smart? That's it, dude. It's too cerebral. Like
maybe
that's not a fun one, dude. You're not having a fun. Who has ever had a fun? Whoever did something fun to Bad Religion?
Well, no, I would say, I mean, that is a big part of it. Also, they don't look as alt and they look older. Yeah. And then on top of it, Bad Religion is very monotone, whereas lots of highs and lows and catchy and the production is just better on like to reel people in on Smash and on Dookie and on Rented Let's Go.
Well, yeah, but Let's Go is too fast. Like, it doesn't break like this. But if Out Come the Wolves comes out in 94 instead of 95, does it hit? Like, is it the 1, 2, or 3?
Great question. We'll never know. I mean, I thought about Pennywise too. What if Pennywise put out an album in 93 and in 95? Are Pennywise that different from the Offspring? And they're a lot closer to the Offspring than I had previously thought from listening to Smash. And like, maybe his voice is too monotone. Like, Greg Graffin is like the punk rock Gordon Lightfoot. You know, maybe that's all it is. And you have really Bad Religion inspired parts in the Offspring, and it's just done in a more radio friendly way, and of course less scholarly. So maybe that's all it is. It's hard to say like why one band does well and another one doesn't, and if these tiny things had been changed, what the outcome would have been. Yeah,
but this is so fun for me to talk about. Like, I love it. We can go all night. Like why does Bad Religion not hit like that? I mean, part of it is this out. Like, Stranger the Fiction sucks. I mean, that's part of it. It's like their first tanker record, in my opinion.
But, I like it, but it's there's something flat about it. And I mean, I actually wrote like, how come it wasn't NoFX? And the thing I could come up with was NoFX. There's something gross about them. Like, they want to be gross and they kind of look gross. And like Green Day and Offspring look like physically clean people, and they don't sing that much about gross stuff, even though Green Day's album is called Dookie. So that might have been a put off for, I don't know, radio program directors or the public or MTV. I don't know. But like the Muffs, the reason Green Day picked their producer is because he did the Muffs record that came out the year before, and they're a punk band and they're on Warner Brothers, just like Green Day ended up being. Like, how come the Muffs didn't break? They're like, Kim Shattuck singing, very, very poppy, but maybe there's just something off-putting about them.
I think, Ben, it just comes down to the songs. Like, the songs on Dookie and Smash are far better than they are to an everyman's ear. They are far better to listen to than Stranger Than Fiction and the Muffs. Like, the Muffs, I've always thought, there's a song in there, but when you've got 5 singles or 4 singles and then another song that just gets radio play because they've ran out of singles, and they want to give you something new from these bands that are really just pulling people in. That's what it comes down to, is the songwriting. Production's huge.
I couldn't agree with you more, because like Green Day, like they have like those songs just like from the second they hit, they're in your head. That's it. It's just that simple. They're great songs. Why did they get big? Because they wrote great fucking songs. Like, they wrote punk influenced rock way better than the Ramones. There, I said it. It's like there's nothing to dissect. It's like they're just that good. Like, Billy Joe Armstrong is just that good. And we can say, like, why did this happen? It's like, why did it happen? Because that dude's that good.
But I think we're in agreement with Green Day and why they break. I'm just so curious about like that no one touches it, right? Because like, let's compare bands to the Offspring then, right? Because I think Dookie sells like 20 million records, Offspring sells like 11 million, and so I'm just so curious like about the number 2s and the number 3s and the number 4s, and like I do think that
but who are the number 2s? Like, who's even like sniffing the throne? Like, no one.
Offspring is number 2, so like let's talk the number 3. Like, what is the number 3 band?
It's gotta be Rancid. Let's Go. It's gotta be.
What's the hit off? Let's Go has like one hit song, right?
Salvation was a huge video,
right? That's the one. I love that album, but like the thing that bangs about that album is it's just solid the whole way through. Like, there's the hits are Salvation, and then Out Come the Wolves is like, half that fucking album is hits. That's why I'm curious.
But I'm saying, like, at the time, if we're talking about this becoming like I hate to say the word again because it sounds like I'm just being a fucking dork, but this is like a total like zeitgeist moment, right? Where lots of bands are starting to get looked at in this post Green Day, like exploding. So lots of bands are being pushed forward to get like radio play or articles written about them. And Rancid was getting tons of articles written about them. On the strength of like Salvation and a couple other songs like Radio being like catchy, but on the other side of it being here's these like charged hair, mohawk, like crazy people from the same scene that Green Day came out of, same last name. Are they related? Who knows? Billy Joe Armstrong, Tim Armstrong, you know. It just carried a lot of cachet, like on their looks and the way they presented themselves. I feel like Rancid was very much in the conversation at the time. Don't you?
Yeah, I think they're in the conversation, but I think what's more interesting is thinking about if Out Come the Wolves comes out in 94 instead of 95. And same with Pennywise, About Time. Their third LP, like they slow down on it. They have like some serious mid-tempo hits on that record. And it's like, again, if that one hits a year earlier, is everything different? Or by like 95, have we broken it wide open to where the people that want to like get into things, like just people want to like Green Day and Offspring is the most popular. And then other people like dive more into the music. And now they're liking the whole epithet type thing and going to Warped Tour. Like Ben said, Warped Tour starts in 95. It's like now it's just this whole thing where you have this whole section of music that's popular. Everything's elevated, but nothing like hits these two tentpole bands or gets close.
I mean, I'll tell you this, like, Pennywise aren't fun. Like, if you're not a white dude, you're not having fun to that music. Like, women aren't having fun to that music. Like, they're a great band. Like, I don't want to take anything away from them, but there's a reason why they're the lowest of the totem pole of this whole thing, because they're so specific. It's such a specific type of thing. It's like, if you like that band, right? Like if you're like, I ride for them, it's not really like, it's not like mainstream America. Like you're not hearing that at a party and being like, cool, unless you're at an Orange County party where everything's kind of fucking bad and a little dark and you're listening to Bro Hymn. Like, bro, it's called fucking Bro Hymn. It's not called Women Hymn. It's not a fun thing. That's why. That's it.
But how is Pennywise culturally different than the Offspring? They're both white dude bands from the suburbs, from Southern California.
Because the Offspring are a little like they're not machismo. They're just kind of dorks.
Okay.
Pennywise is bravado.
You're right.
Right?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They're just like a little more confrontational, where the average person is like, yeah, I don't know about that. But the average person is like, yeah, I have low self-esteem. Whoa, that happened to me. Pennywise is not vulnerable.
You're right, Pops, because actually Offspring's hitting on two tiers then as well, right? If they come out the gate with like Keep 'Em Separated, like that's a fun fucking song. People can't like accuse it of not being fun. And then you're right, there's all this vulnerability under it with like the self-esteem song and other things. And then they also tap into like very like the youth angst as well, right? Like some simple things that are kind of witty. Like they have that song about road rage. Like that's something that like kind of everyone can tap into. Like, yeah, man, I'm driving, like I'm pissed, Yeah,
but the Keep 'Em Separated song also taps into, especially with their visual portrayal of it, it's like tapping into like gang violence, which is huge within the hip hop scene of the early 90s, selling millions of records, plus so many films around the time. So it's maybe interesting a few people on that level as well.
Yeah, and if we play it out a little bit like forward, was Pennywise going to write a song about like he asked for a 13, but he got a 31. Like, they're not doing that. They're not like, those guys are not equipped to like do a song like that. Whereas the Offspring's like, yeah, that's actually what we do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they rewrote Obla Di Obla Da, and like they were just like, yeah, we'll write a fucking Beatles song this way. We don't give a fuck. We're fucking dorks. And it's like, Pennywise isn't going to do that.
No, and Bad Religion is not either, right?
Oh, yeah. No way in hell.
You know,
no way in
Bad
hell.
Religion is not going to have like a road rage song, you know? So like, yeah, maybe it is just like the simplicity of the lyrics, like backed with like relatively simple melodic songs and then delivering in like the big room format. Like that's what did it. And, you know, thinking about like Rancid, like those, yeah, I don't know. Like maybe there isn't a vulnerability in those lyrics, or maybe there's not. I don't know. I love them.
I also think it's this. It's like, so all these people we're talking about, they're fans of the music that we love, right? They witness, like most of them are older than us. Offspring especially, Noodles. Right? Like Noodles saw TSOL in the best version of TSOL. And then they just said like, they synthesized these things that we think are really cool in a way that was more digestible to them. Like, well, what if TSOL was like what I liked? And that's like, I can't do that, man. No fucking way. But those guys can. They like, and the same thing with Green Day. They were like, they synthesized the things that were really cool. Husker Du, the Replacements, whatever. Oh, what's my version of it? It's a little fartier. And they just made it really great. And, you know, that's how you make money. It's just, it's a conundrum for people because you're like, why? And it's like, it's not that, you know, to think about it that much. It's just like, what's Americana want? They delivered it.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
there's a great, well, it's not a great documentary, but it's informative. It's called Clockwork Orange County. And it's sort of like a really, have you, any of you seen it? It's like about the Orange County punk scene. Yeah. And Jello Biafra has this great quote towards the end of the documentary that I quoted for the 1.5 piece. And I just want to read this quote again because it relates exactly what we're talking about. He says, he's talking about the early 80s, you know, Adolescents, Agent Orange, TSOL kind of bands. He goes, these were hit records that didn't become radio hits because they weren't on corporate major labels. And if Rodney didn't play it, nobody would except the college stations. But in retrospect, it doesn't surprise me that the OC sound was kind of the cradle of what made bands like Bad Religion and later much bigger bands like Green Day and The Offspring, especially, openly trace their lineage to TSOL. They got big because finally the masses heard that type of punk sound. So there was this infectious, great, well-crafted songs, punk music that we know about because, you know, we're in the thick of it. TSOL, Adolescence, Agent Orange, it's early Social Distortion. But that shit was suppressed. Like there was no way for the mainstream to hear it. And then finally, once they heard it, it was like, oh, this music's great. Of course, they heard it in a really watered down radio friendly version with that Offspring album, but you still, obviously the influence is undeniable.
Yeah, I guess I just like, we'll talk about it when we talk about those two albums. Let's talk about what the lasting legacy of this is, like the 94 punk explosion. Is it just that like it elevates punk out of like kind of a darker period of like the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and it never like fully falls off again? Is there like a lasting legacy of like these two tentpole bands like create lineages to other stuff? Or I don't know, because I don't know what comes out of Green Day and Offspring that's great, but I do know that like
Blink 182 right there, like the biggest band of all of them. I mean, actually Green Day sold more, but like they opened up like Blink doesn't happen if Green Day doesn't get big, right? And then after Blink 182, then you have all this other emo music, right? So like that's, to me, it's like the legacy is it opened up the average person to kind of like music like the Descendants. Like that didn't happen before. And I think that's like really important. Now, does any of that shit be cool? I don't care. But it opened up, like, it created a lane for a type of music that the average consumer wouldn't appreciate, and then all of a sudden they did appreciate it. So to me, that's my statement on it.
Right. So for your average Joe citizen, it gets presented in front of you. This is punk, and then because it's so in your face, if you want to dive into it, you can dive into it, and you can figure out like the real thick of it.
Exactly. And like, and now, like, let's look at it as a testament. Like, these bands that were a little niche, now they can play festivals. So I think those bands were like, they were just warming up the seat, right? Like, of like, you're gonna like, because I mean, even think about TSOL. Like, in 1994, how many people could they draw? In where we are now, how many people could they draw? That wouldn't have happened if these bands were warming up the seat, being like, yeah, no, like, this is the real shit.
Yeah. Dan, what's your take on the legacy?
The legacy is two-pronged. One, it allowed the generics across the world to realize there is an ability to be, quote-unquote, a rock star without having rock star tropes, and with treating people with respect to an extent, you know, and presenting thoughtful topics in a pretty blunt, non-pretentious way. That's one side of it. The other side is the ability to reach into many rural and urban places where this music may never have come across somebody's path, and then has allowed them to use this as a starting point and then go deep. And then 4 years later, they're doing a hardcore band putting out a 7-inch of 300 pressed, and, you know, they've done their deep dive into Minor Threat, into Black Flag, blah, 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 etc. And now they're putting out raging, pissed hardcore because this was their one little, you know, glimpse that started them off down that path. You know?
Yeah, and we should say, piggybacking on what you're saying, Daniel, like reaching into every part of America, Hot Topic has a lot to do with that as well, right? Because this is a spot, you know, it's in the mall, it looks a little punk, you can go in there, you can buy your Green Day and your Offspring, but they're also going to have the Minor Threat discography, right? So it is like a very easy catalyst to find this stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, it becomes a commodity.
Right. Yeah, and then Hot Topic is also, like, just to talk on them a minute, like, they were very important for, like, those labels, like, of, like, the Hopeless Records level, you know, before they break with, like, the Avenged Sevenfolds and this stuff, but when they're doing, you know, 80 Fingers Louie, bands like that, because a lot of stores would buy from labels only on consignment, and so that's a very vulnerable position to have your business in, right? Because you don't know really how much your shit is selling and like what your money guaranteed was, but Hot Topic would buy like up front, you know, which was like kind of a rarity. So it gave these labels, like, you know, they knew how many Hot Topic was going to buy, so they could press in larger quantities and like take more chances on bands. So it's just an interesting little side note of this stuff. Ben, what's your opinion on the legacy?
Man, that's a tough one. It's just, it's so vast. Like the most direct thing would be, it started the whole Warped Tour culture and the Warped Tour itself, a soundtrack for the X Games, and the whole, you know, Tony Hawk Pro Skater thing. And then I guess it does mutate into emo by the early 2000s. But yeah, you see Blink-182's continual success kind of on the back of this stuff. And these two bands are still huge. They still make big records. But then, like Dan said, you have pretty much, I say most people, I was born in 78. Most people my age or younger, these were the gateway bands into more underground punk and hardcore music. And I guess that's it. I'm trying to think if there's another like huge piece of the equation that none of us are touching on, but I can't think of it.
I don't think it's a huge one, but I do think it's very cool. Like, I'm being honest, that Dexter, right, from the Offspring, started Nitro to re-release TSOL, right? To put, like, that's really nice, right? Like, that this dude's like, I'm rich, I don't have to worry about shit, and I'm gonna re-release music, and I'm gonna release other music that I think is cool. Like,
well,
that's very nice.
There's a backhanded element to it that I know of.
What's that?
Just from being friends with Lisa from Frontier. Oh, it's just business shit. I mean, yeah, he brought that stuff to the attention of, I guess, your average pop punk consumer, which is your point. There were some shenanigans financially behind the scenes, but that's neither here nor there.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that has nothing to do with the legacy.
Right.
Think
exactly.
about this legacy wise.
Yeah, it's just super nice that he did that.
Well, think about this legacy wise, right? How many records did The Clash sell because of this? So many. How many records did Sex Pistols sell because of this explosion with this whole new generation? So many. You know? It even allowed the generic person to go back and dabble in what is considered punk too.
Totally.
You know?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like
if 3% of 20 million people discover the Buzzcocks, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, even aim higher, right? Like, people are going from Green Day to the Sex Pistols, you know, just like a no-brainer. I think that the giant thing we missed here, and then let's wrap up the segment, is just that, you know, we talk about Green Day needing like the backing of the major and so forth, but Offspring stays on Epitaph, and that is wild. It's like the biggest selling indie release ever, right, Ben?
That's correct. 11 million sold.
Yep.
That's insane. Yeah, it's an anomaly. Like the fact that they sold that many records on an independent label, it's never been done before or since. And they did end up going to Columbia Records maybe in '96, but you know, that's irrelevant.
They did, but it did show a lot of the bands like on that, like the Warped Tour circuit bands, like these Fat and Epitaph bands, that like there is another option. You don't have to go the major label route. In fact, like you have bands like NoFX that were on Epitaph, and eventually like Fat Mike just has them on Fat, you know, and like does that whole thing. Or like you have Dexter doing the Nitro. You have like the labels coming up like the Hopelesses and the Fearlesses and whatever. So it is like a giant break for like the indie thing as well.
Absolutely, because it told these like smaller bands that like you could sell like 90,000 records and be rich. Like, no use for a name, dude. Like, those guys made money, and they weren't on a major, you know. Like, that's really fucking cool that like they created a pipeline of like, yeah, no, there's an audience, and you know what? You're actually indie platinum. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, there's so many Dave Clark Fives to the Beatles, you know? A lot of these Epitaph bands are the Dave Clark Fives riding in on the British invasion, you know, coattails that Green Day and Offspring.
Right. But if you're riding those coattails on an indie and you're getting a couple dollars a unit, you're styling.
Exactly.
You know, you're styling. You're not getting like 7 pennies.
You're having a good fucking day.
Right.
The fight lasts for hours, each ram battering the other dozens of times.
Head to head.
All right, we're going head to head with the two punk albums that broke in '94. Broke it wide open. We're going Green Day Dookie versus Offspring Smash. Ben, which record's better, dude?
All right, let's start with Smash. Time to Relax is this kind of spoken word intro that predates Lifetime, Civ, and Dillinger 4, putting little talking samples from old records on their albums. So Offspring are trailblazers in this regard. And then we go into Nitro, Youth Energy. This is like Penny.
Wait, Ben, are you going to do every single song?
Yeah, is that bad?
No, but let me just piggyback off you because I do every single song. So you do it and I'll follow you.
Oh, okay. So Time to Relax. What do you have for that?
It's just a stupid skit. It's a total bummer because this album would have started out pretty sick if it just started on that drum roll for the first song, the Nitro Youth Energy, but very of the time, right? Oh, let's do a skit. And it bookends. There's a skit at the beginning and the end. So they had a concept. It was just a shit concept.
Yeah, but it's a little bit before its time. You know, all these other bands are doing it in 95 and a little later. So
That's fair. That's fair. All right, on to the second song.
Nitro Youth Energy. This is like Pennywise with John Bunch from Reason to Believe singing over it. Based on that description, this would be one of my 5 favorite songs ever. And yet it isn't. It's not bad, though.
I just said this is killer. And I rated all the songs because I wanted to be objective of which one I like more here. So I gave everything like a school grade. And then I gave 5 points for an A, 4 points for a B, et cetera, et cetera. And then I averaged it out so I could choose. So Nitro Youth Energy, I just said killer, and I gave it an A. I'm being very generous in these grading. This is how I graduated high school, so I'm giving it back. All right, Ben, go on.
Bad habit. Okay, Dexter's voice is obnoxious when you hear it naked like that. This is totally their version of Man and Machine by TSOL. It sounds more like Pennywise, though, but less good. When he swears, it totally has a 13-year-old kid, I'm swearing right now, so that makes me cool and tough vibe.
Yeah, this is like tapping into that like teenage angst. I gave this one a B, but I can totally see how like mad 16-year-olds out there, they're like, oh, that's so cool because he says that stupid, dumb shit, goddamn motherfucker. That part, like, that was probably put on repeat many times by many angsty 16-year-olds.
Yeah, how many times have someone been sent to their room and they just been blasting that down the stairs?
Totally, dude. Totally. All right, got to get away, Ben.
The drum and bass intro is a total ripoff of I'm Tired of Life by TSOL. Listen to those back to back. It's crazy how much of a ripoff it is. The choruses are very similar to 21st Century Digital Boy by Bad Religion. The irony being Bad Religion re-recorded that song and put it out this year and didn't do nearly as well as Offspring. But this wasn't the single, so not that big of a deal.
No, it was actually the third single, I think. So there's the Cube Separated, there's Self-Esteem, and then there's this one. And I actually like this song. I said it's a slow hit, has a good chorus, and I give it a B.
All right, Genocide. Boring, but nothing I can really point to makes me seriously dislike it. Just dull. That's all I've got.
I said it's fast, and it has a great lead, and it's killer. That gets an A.
Wow. Okay. Something to believe in. This is very close to being a good song, but the backup woes on the choruses are grating.
Fast, good, A.
All right. Come Out and Play. This is not a typical Offspring song, and it's the first big hit. So I can totally see an alternate timeline where Offspring were one-hit wonders with a novelty song, this song. The guitar lead is lifted from Agent Orange Bloodstains, the Middle Eastern sounding solo. And I think Agent Orange owe a lot to Dick Dale. This song is annoying. The one time I saw them, their friend who says, gotta keep them separated, was there up on stage with his own mic, and he was singing, gotta keep them constipated. # fart rock.
I said this is fun. He gets a B.
Okay, Self-Esteem, the other massive hit on this album. It sounds like Nirvana, but less good than any one song on Nevermind. Okay, I'm tripling down on my Nirvana theory.
This is slow and sucks. La 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 D.
It'll be a long time. Fake Bad Religion, especially how it slows down and does the rock part in the middle and then speeds up again. This could be on Suffer, but it's less good than any one song on Suffer.
Fast, good, A.
Killboy Powerhead. Pretty cool that they picked a relatively obscure band to cover. This is a cover by the band The Digits. Still not very good.
This is a 1.5 banger, dude. I give it an A.
All right, go Digits. What Happened to You? Ew. Offspring plays ska. I don't remember this. Awful.
This is why Kurt Cobain killed himself, so that's a shame. And yeah, I don't know. At least it's a straight edge ska song, Ben. And so we will upgrade it from a D to a C for you and Dan.
What Happened to You? You're Not the Same. And maybe it's a reference to the lyric in Filler. All right, So Alone. The guitar sounds like a race car. More bad words for tweens.
This is fast and has those aggressive pick slides that get called out in the Bad Religion book. So, but it does get a grade deduction for those pointless yeahs on the fast part. It's all yeah or whatever. That's terrible. This one gets a B.
Not the One. Is this song ... good? If I just imagine John Bunch singing instead of a white guy who went to Mexico and got his hair braided, I think I can actually enjoy this. I give this song a pass. It's good.
You think you got a braid in Mexico, or you went on like a carnival cruise in like the Caribbean? Like, fuck it. The first vendor just got him like, hey man, you want your hair braided? Hell yeah. I kind of respect them for that. This is killer and fast. It gets an A.
Yeah, it's the best song on the album, and I don't remember ever hearing it before. Smash, the title track. I just think of a snowboarder drinking Mountain Dew. I'm not a trendy asshole. It's like faux rebel music.
Yeah, this is killer, and like there is an irony of thinking about like them singing this to a big crowd and having everyone chant that, right? Like whatever. A, the song kicks ass. It gets an A.
And so I wrote that my summary of Smash is this whole record sounds so clean and professional that it's a turnoff to my seasoned punk rock ears, but it makes sense that an entry-level punk record would have to sound polished like this. Should we just go to Dookie?
Well, I think that it's just interesting, Ben, you know, because it is something we talked about, right? Like the people that didn't listen to TSOL or Agent Orange or whatever, like think about how much you just talked on this record saying like, oh, they took this from this. They took this from this. Like that is pretty fucking cool. No, let's send this to Dan and Pops to get their takes on this before we go on to Green Day, since we're going to spend so much time again. Pops, what's your take on this Offspring record before we decide the head-to-head winners?
It's a great record. Like I mean, like you can't say it's a bad record, you know. But if we're gonna go toe to toe, like Dookie is an awesome record. Like that's just like I think that record is basically like guys who had all this like they had all the experience and then they're like, okay, what do we do with that? And then just pop it, right? They just keep coming up with great songs.
I think that's it.
I don't think they're comparable because I think they're very different. But yeah. I mean, it's very hard to say. Like, I mean, yeah, I really don't have a comparison. Dookie is my take on that one because also it's like a dog throwing shit at you. That's pretty cool. It's pretty fucking cool that like someone paid for that and you're like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna call this record Dookie. Fuck you. Like that's pretty awesome. Fuck you.
All right,
Offspring,
Dan. Oh,
whatever. They're cool. It's a good record, but it's pales in comparison. Anyways.
No, I think that's fair. Dan, what's your take on Offspring? And then you can do Dookie too. Me and Ben will finish.
All right. There's something about the song Self-Esteem. Now it is like nails on a chalkboard to me. Like it is just unlistenable. But at the time, it was so listenable. Like it was so catchy, so you just wanted to sing along with it, you know, and that is the standout of the LP in a historical sense. But I remember really liking this LP at the time, and I wasn't as familiar with their earlier stuff, and it made me go back and listen to the album before it, which I ended up liking a lot more than this one. But you know, like Gotta Get Away, Track. I mean, there's a lot of schlock on here too, though. A lot of really embarrassing lyrics. A lot of, you know, but it can all be summed up in one word: noodles! ! Shout out to the god. We gotta say, anything that Noodles is involved in, it's getting the blue tick. But Dookie bodies this. Dookie completely bodies it. Even if like, for example, like on Dookie, you're just gonna go off of the 3 like hits that destroy Smash. Basket Case, Long View, and Welcome to Paradise being my favorite of the 3. But the song She on Dookie, so good. FOD, you know, that was like, oh, they mean fuck off and die. Ooh, so naughty. When I Come Around, man, what a fucking track. Pulling Teeth, another great one. But you know, and the album opener, Burnout, so good. If we're going head to head, I've got to have Dookie. Oh, that sounds yucky. Green Day beats Offspring, Blink-182 bodies them all, but we're not there yet.
All right, Ben, let's dig into that Green Day record.
All right. Before we move on to Green Day, I just wanted to point out that Tom Wilson is the producer of the Offspring Smash, and he is also the producer of Adolescence Blue album, TSOL Dance With Me, Legal Weapon, the first Rick Agnew solo album, Christian Death, Dead Kennedys, Vandals, DOA, Bad Religion, Youth Brigade, Social Distortion. It's like they got the guy for the music. They didn't just want to emulate the music that they grew up on. They wanted to get the guy who made the music, which I thought was pretty neat.
What's interesting about that, Ben? That's saying that they wanted the person that made all these classic records. So it wasn't like they were going for a major label producer to do a major label hit album. They were just going for someone who did legendary stuff to make their music hopefully be in that category. So that's an interesting point when we talk about, you know, go back to thinking about when we were talking about how things broke. It wasn't like Epitaph were lining them up with a Jerry Finn or something like that, you know?
Right.
No, it's them being very reverential again, which is awesome. And like kind of a cool thing about the band. Right? I mean, they were on fucking Nemesis, dude. Shout out, Big Frank.
Yep. So, okay, Dookie, Burnout. This is like a nursery rhyme. What have you got, Zach?
Catchy mid-tempo song. I give it an A.
Having a blast. This sounds like decent Lookout style punk, maybe slightly above average. This dude's voice sucks, though.
Catchy mid-tempo. Give it an A.
Chump.
That's 2 A's.
Chump. I guess Green Day is more listenable than Offspring because I keep forgetting that I'm even listening to music and needing to rewind. Punk elevator music. The breakdown part in this song is unnecessary. They're probably trying to be The Who.
Okay, I put this is an okay song, and I took off a point at the end for the jam part. So this gets a C.
Long View, the breakthrough hit. Very quiet verses and very loud choruses. Nirvana. Shit, I did not make this connection until today. And I know the Pixies did it first, but I'm talking about big hits that norms were exposed to. People would always say, this song is about masturbation, like it was some big secret. The word masturbation is literally in the lyrics. This song isn't terrible.
Well, Ben, if we are going off of what you have referenced earlier, trying to be the Who, not the poo, the Who, quiet parts, massive, explosive, loud choruses.
It's totally in that, like, it's in that Nirvana grunge trope, you know, like the soft verses, hit the pedal, we're going heavy for the chorus. What's up, dude? Bounce. You know,
Yeah,
but
but
anyway.
like I can see for miles really quiet parts and then loud, explosive like choruses.
Well, right on. This song gets a meh. Plus, it lost another point because they do another jam dragger part at the end. So this gets a D.
All right. Welcome to Paradise. The choruses have a 60s feel to them. That descending chord progression reminds me of For Your Love by the Yardbirds. The production is easy on the ears. Easy listening punk.
This is okay. It has another jam part in the middle, and that's a point deduction. So this gets a C.
Also, Clapton is a goddamned idiot.
Clapton
I
Clapton
saw
is a
that on a
god.
meme earlier. Yeah, remember Clapton was in the Yardbirds?
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, there's that famous graffiti, Clapton is a god. But earlier this week, I saw someone had graffitied it, and it says Clapton is a god, and then underneath it, damned idiot, because he's an anti-vaxxer moron.
Right.
Well, Dan, do you know the difference between a bag of cocaine and a baby? Eric Clapton would never drop a bag of coke out the window. All right, Ben, let's go on.
Pulling teeth. These guys seem to. Well, actually, did you tell us what you thought of Welcome to Paradise yet?
I did. It's a C.
Okay. Pulling teeth. These guys seem to care more about quote unquote songcraft than the Offspring. By that, I mean they sound like they studied music that was made before the first Rodney on the Rock comp and music that was made outside the LA and Orange County borders. This song is pretty harmless and almost feels like it's not even there. Zero impact exercise.
This is slow and it sucks. It gets a D.
Basket Case. Is it possible for punk to get any more poppy than this song? I don't believe so. I hear a little Billy Bragg New England in there, except this song is annoying and I don't like it.
Do you have the time?
Oh, come on. This song rules. It gets an A.
She. It's a song, all right.
This is killer. It gets an A.
Sassafras Roots. This is fine. Harmless. Toothless.
Good. B.
When I Come Around. This is a good song at its core, but it's played in a real lumpty-lump 90s rock kind of way with an annoying singer. I bet some British indie pop band circa 1986 would have done it justice, but time travel doesn't exist.
Yawn. C.
Coming Clean. Good song. Of course, he had to throw in a "Mom and Dad won't understand" eye roll emoji.
Decent. B.
Amenius Sleepus. This feels like filler. It's redundant. There are enough songs that sound like this on the record.
This is okay, but it gets another point off for having a jam part. Gets a C.
It gets 2 points added for being proto Harry Potter, though.
You had your own time, Dan. All right, moving on. In the end, Ben?
In the end, if you're at a backyard party and the band starts playing a song that sounds like this, it's time to go home.
What? It's time to slam. This is the fastest song on the record.
I was going to say it's time to fucking chill.
Dude, this song rips. It's killer.
Deep.
It's A. It's the best song on the
Deep
record.
FOD. FOD. Is the CD on repeat? Haven't we heard this before?
No, dude, you haven't heard 90 seconds of acoustic jam. This song gets a D.
And before I tell the last one, Coming Clean, I actually really do like that song. I mean, he says mom and dad won't understand, which is kind of like, okay, yeah, you're appealing to little kids, but I really, that's the Deep album cut that I connected with on this album, just as I connected with that One Deep album cut on the Offspring album. So I came away from this whole exercise a fan of two songs that I don't remember ever having heard before. Last song, All By Myself, is a joke acoustic song, #90s.
Yeah, I don't even know if I made a note for it. Let me check. Oh, acoustic, D.
Here's my general takeaway from Green Day Dookie. Whatever the gender neutral term for balls is, Green Day doesn't have them. Both bands have annoying singers and plenty of okay sounding inoffensive songs. Offspring is for 13-year-olds and Green Day is for 8-year-olds. This is really close, even though the worst song on either album is the Offspring ska song. Smash beats Dookie because it makes me think of John Bunch, rest in peace. Shout out Noodles, you earned this.
The word you're looking for is guts, Ben. That would be generally.
I thought about that. I don't think guts has this. Guts is more like bravery, and balls is something a little different than that. I don't know. We'll figure it out eventually as a culture.
How
That's
patriarchal, Ben.
That's fair. Okay, so going to my spreadsheet, the average for Offspring songs is a 4.2, and the average for Green Day songs is a 3.1. So we're split. I'm going Offspring as well, mostly because shout out to the God, fucking what's up. But yeah, dude, we're split. This is ill. This is what I want to see. All right, everyone, we'll post this later in the week. You got to let us know what you think. And you got to make a pick, dude, even if you don't like either. They're important records just because they are. What's up? All right, we are going to do a UFO for the Quicksand album Slip. So basically, the day of the recording of this album, Walter has been abducted by a UFO, and he cannot sing on the record. You can replace him with anyone from any era. And Ben, who you taking?
All right. When I lived with Mark Holcomb from Undertow, he told me that when the Seaweed guitarist Clint Werner produced Undertow, he would tell the band, you guys could be big if you did more of a Quicksand type thing. So let's put that shit to the test. John Pettibone from Undertow singing over the first Quicksand album. I think it would work. They'd barely still be post-hardcore. Those aggro vocals would push them into hardcore proper territory. Maybe the songs would suffer a tiny bit melodically, but they would be just as powerful. And I was thinking about this. What's the closest thing to someone with that aggro of a voice singing over music that is somewhat like this? And I think Threadbare is pretty close. And are any of you familiar with Threadbare?
Of course.
Okay. Do you see that?
Not really.
Okay, never mind then. But I still think
I'm not going to say I feel you on that, but
well, my pick is still John Pettibone from Undertow.
I back that pick, dude. I did not think about that at all, and that's a pretty awesome pick. Going like straightforward, great hardcore voice over this. That's very interesting. Pops, what's your take on this?
okay, so I went through like kind of a lot of things on this one. I was like, well, you got to have some New York City swagger. And I thought Richard Birkenhead, he might be able to do it, right? But then I was like, well, he's Ozzy, right? So I was like, yeah, no, Ozzy singing on this one, that would be fucking sick. And then I was like, no, that's an awful idea because Ozzy just sings the riffs, you know? Like Ozzy rules, right? But his cadence is just, I'm singing over the thing that I do. Ooh.
Yep.
Terrible, right? So I was like, well, who's a fake Ozzy, right? And I was like, Billy Pumpkin over Slip. That'd be really cool. And I was like, yeah, that's actually terrible too. I was like, Chris Cornell, that's the guy. Chris Cornell. but he's also dead, so that's not going to work. I was like, okay. Ken Andrews. Ken Andrews is a failure, right? That's a really good one. That's where I landed. I was like, that dude, failure is like kind of the West Coast Quicksand to me. Very similar. We don't fit anywhere. We're kind of like spacey, cool. And then I was like, yeah, no, actually not. And I'm going with Rick Fork. So that's my answer, Rick Fork.
Right on. Dan, what's your take?
Well, I should have gone first instead of letting Ben go first because my take is Dwid. Now,
What the fuck? Okay, let me jump in, dude. I didn't want to do this one because I don't like this record. You know, like I don't like any of this type of music really. And I know that people love it. I know it's important, and that's awesome. And also, Walter wrote Start Today, you know, music and lyrics, right?
yeah.
Yes.
It's like, dude, he should get carried around. Like, he should never have to call an Uber or a taxi cab ever again. Like, we should walk him around New York City like he's the fucking Macho King Randy Savage. You know, it's like, where can we take you, Walter? Like, you're
On
the
a
king of the
litter?
world. What's that?
On a litter. That's what those things are called.
Yeah, we should carry him around on a litter. You know, this guy rules. And it's a bummer that I don't like this stuff. So I don't want to say anything bad about it. But, man, to just go Dwid, it's like, because this was so hard for me to.
You cut me off. I'm going to continue to say it. So you finish your thing, then I'm coming back and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, Glenn Benton, go ahead.
No, say why you chose that and what he would bring to it.
No, go ahead.
You want a toe? You want a toe? I could get you a toe. You're straight up Walter in the coffee shopping me on Big Lebowski right now. Gonna stay here and finish my coffee.
I cannot wait to hear this Dwid pitch. Let's do this.
Okay. All right. So Dwid, like, imagine everyone right now can hear what Head to Wall sounds like in their head, you know, like Walter's doing relaxing time like that. But imagine if it's like relaxing time, like the total Dwid, like breathy kind of vocals against that. It would be so fucking sick. Also, let's just say there's a song on the album called Baphomet. So you've got the Dwid connection right there. I think that range of going guttural, low with the breathiness would really work on these staccato-y start-stop style riffs and would really add something and give you a whole different vibe of an album compared to what you get with Walter, which is pretty perfect as it is. So if we're going to reimagine it, let's reimagine it with a different vibe, and that's where I landed. Dwid singing on Quicksand Slip.
FYI, I'd love to hear that record.
Right?
Fucking, I'd love to hear that, dude. Like, Dwid singing on fucking Slip, I'm there for it. That's awesome.
Yeah, but he's only willing to turn this up to 7, you know, and I'm turning it up to 11 and going Glenn Benton. I'm raising Dwid with Glenn, and yeah, the upside down cross in the forehead, dude. Let's do this.
Oh, I'm fucking so with you on that one. Fucking, actually, I love that.
Yeah, I was just, you know, I always wondered, like, what would it sound like if, you know, Chris Barnes sang for Lagwagon? Like, what would that be? You know? So, I mean, I don't know. It would work. I love, like, both. I love all the ideas, right? Like, the Pettibone one is the most intriguing to me, I think, just because straight, good, hardcore vocals over something that, like, is kind of groovy. Like, but when I listen to this album, I don't think that the reason why I don't like it is because of the vocals, but maybe it is like an element, you know, that just makes it like kind of boring, and it just sounds like alternative rock to me. I don't know why. Maybe we should do a segment at some point, because I know that this is a classic album that a lot of people love. We should do something where like one of you guys pitches this to me, why this is like so special, and I should, like, what makes it different than, I don't know, listening to Alice in Chains or Pearl Jam. Sorry, I mean that's what I get, like this alternative bucket. Like, I just don't. like it that much, and so I don't really understand it or know like how to pick out the good stuff and the bad stuff just because it's not appealing to me. I don't know. Dan, maybe you should tell me why this is so special right now.
Well, it has an absolute groove to it, underlining the guitars doing the stutter, start, stop stuff. But yeah, it's that rhythm section, Cage and Sergio, like underlying this whole thing. Like, I really think it offers so much more difference than the bands that you mentioned. I think it's fantastic. The one thing I will say is that maybe it's a little bit samey, you know, and then you add on, like, if you get the vinyl version and get the How Soon Is Now cover, that just adds just such a little cherry on top that makes it so amazing, because it's a total reimagination of that song, and it's done with so much love, and it's really great.
Pops, why is this better than Alice in Chains?
Well, I'll tell you, Alice in Chains is a band that, like, they're rocking, right? They're rocking out, which is fine. Dude, the Alice in Chains is awesome. Quicksand is a very special band because they were playing rock music in a way that, like, wasn't was very cognizant. They were like, we're playing rock music, but we think rock music sucks. That band rules, dude. Like, when you're doing that, when you're in that, you're like, rock music sucks, but also we're doing it. Cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, there's a corniness to Alice in Chains that there isn't in Quicksand. Like, there's like, I'm the man in the box. There's nothing corny about Quicksand. Like, you can like it or not like it, but it's not cheesy like Alice in Chains is.
Yeah, it's just very honest. It's like, yo, we're doing it. Like, we're going big riffs, but if you don't like it, you can't tell me we're corny.
You know what it's like?
You could.
I think it's kind of like if Tool was good. Like, Tool are like fake intelligent rock music. Like, they're not really smart. They just convince stupid people that they're smart. Like, this actually is intelligent.
I have to stop you, Ben. That's the best thing I've ever heard. Because, like, it's so true. If you like Tool, you're a Tool, dude. Like, that's like a good day for you. You're like, yeah, this is like, you're probably an anti-vaxxer if you like Tool. I'm putting it out there.
I think I'd just rather listen to Ben shit talk Tool.
Dude, they're the worst band. They're one of the worst bands. They're a jam band that actually sucks.
But they're name a good jam band.
No, they're not good on any level. Like, okay, number one, like, the number one thing I'll tell you about Tool is that the main dude is a fucking like, he sucks, dude.
He's a pedophile.
Okay.
Yeah, correct, friend. Correct.
Okay.
Well,
that's
the reason
that's a big reason to not like him. Why is he not in jail?
Because he's rich. I mean, it's like not that hard to figure out. But that being said, that band sucks, dude. The Tool, like, wow, I don't really like them.
All right, dude, you're going on a road trip, Pops. You can only listen to the Chili Peps or Tool.
Oh, I'm going Chili Peps all day, dude.
Ben, what are you taking?
Tool, 100%, no question.
Really?
Oh yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers is the worst band ever, tied with Pearl Jam.
Oh, you actually are right on that. I made a bad choice on that one.
The Chili Peppers are the worst, tied with post '90s Aerosmith.
A fun fact about Tool is that their first EP, Opiate, is produced by Steve Hansgen of the band Minor Threat.
How about that? Dan, Chili Peps or Tool? And then let's wrap this shit.
Chili Peppers by a billion miles. Chili Peppers have got tracks. They really do.
How many times are you going to listen to?
No, I hate
that's fucking actually sick.
I only like new Peps. I need
dude.
like some scar
Oh,
tissue,
yeah.
some Californication. Like
Those are great tunes, dude.
that's where
Scar
I'm
tissue.
going. Yeah.
I'm with you on that, dude. Scar
Yeah.
tissue. Wow, I'm like tearing up right now.
All right, I'm blowing up this pod right now. It's over. We'll talk to y'all next Monday. Fuck it.